Do you look at the sea and see nearly water? Do you see the night above it as simply the absence of the sun? If so, you have not yet reached the boundary of true terror. While darkness on land is a simple lack of light, the gloom on the ocean is the absolute, terrifying presence of a realm that does not belong to us. There are boundary areas on this planet we are not meant to tread, but nothing rivals the absolute isolation and dread that swallows you whole when you find yourself in the open sea after midnight. Here, all laws of human physics collapse, and the rules of the old covenant which we hoped were mere myths rise up. In every maritime culture, from the shores of the Arabian Gulf to the icy waters of the Atlantic, generations have passed down one horrific truth: the Djinn and the demons own the night, and the ocean is their undisputed throne. This is not a cautionary tale, it is an ancient, deeply rooted belief that the very throne of the leader of all evil, Iblis Satan, was established above the waters. From his throne, he dispatches his armies and progeny to scatter in every direction, seeking out isolated, despairing souls, or those who dared to trespass into his dominion after midnight. The night at sea is never quiet. It is filled with unseen movement, whispering, and transposition, the movement of entities you do not see and only hear when they choose to break the barrier of the illusion. When a ship breaks down in the dark, and its engines suddenly fail, or its compasses begin to spin madly, it is not a mechanical failure. It is a direct intervention from a power beyond our comprehension. The Djinn were created from fire without smoke, the flame of the hot wind, and this fiery essence has a devastating electromagnetic effect on our fragile systems of metal and electricity. It is a force that can manipulate human technology because it stems from an older, more essential element. At that moment, the old sailor knows he has surpassed the limits of human protection and reached a point where the demons command the vessel instead of him. This is the first stage of stripping, removing the tools from your hands, leaving you alone and terrified in the dark. But to complete the dominance, there must be a specific commander leading this nightly siege. Lords of the deep, Bu Darya, the texture of illusion, and the sweetness of the lie. The greatest terror lies in the existence of specific generals for this unseen army. In the tales of the Gulf, one chilling name rises above all others: Bu Darya, the Lord of the deep waters, its absolute sultan. He is not an abstract being, but an entity with a form, described as a colossal amphibious giant combining man and sea creature. Yet, his true power is not in his massive physical form, but in his absolute ability to manipulate shape and perception. You might see him as a looming shadow forming within a wave, or he may manifest as something far smaller, like a strange ripple moving against the current, or a distorted reflection of your own face on the viscous water as surface. Bu Darya's greatest horror is not brute force, but the manipulation of human emotion and despair. The isolated sailor is the ideal target. Bu Darya comes in the form of a siren sound. It might be the sorrowful wailing of a weeping woman, a cry that touches the raw centers of regret and longing in your soul. It could be the pure, innocent giggle of a child in pain, shattering the human instinct to protect. Or, most lethally, you may hear a voice calling your specific name in a familiar tone, perhaps the voice of a loved one you have lost, compelling you to respond. The desperate sailor who indulges his curiosity and opens the cabin door or peers out the window to find the source of the sound makes their final mistake. They do not see a woman or a child. They see two burning red eyes glowing in the absolute dark just beneath the water's surface, or a massive shadow rising from the waves in defiance of all natural laws. In that moment, there is no time to scream. Limbs freeze, and the sailor feels an invisible, frigid grip violently dragging them down. They do not drown in the physical sense. Their soul and essence are violently stripped and taken to become part of Bu Darya's retinue. These attacks are never random. They adhere to a meticulous schedule. a time governed by our absolute human frailty. So, when does this horror peak? When are the barriers between our world and theirs at their weakest? The zero hour, when human protection vanishes, the danger is not constant. It intensifies at specific times. The hour of absolute horror in all maritime tales is 3 o'clock a.m., the precise moment just before dawn. Why 3 o'clock a.m.? Because this is the moment when the human body reaches its lowest level of biological and spiritual energy. The mind is tired from the watch, the soul is exhausted from the struggle, and the strength of faith is weakened in the face of the protracted darkness. It is at this exact hour that the barriers between our dimension and theirs are said to be at their most fragile. Imagine yourself keeping watch at this hour on a quiet ship. Silence swallows every sound, and suddenly it all begins. The silent noise, not the sound of waves, but a subtle, heavy thud coming from beneath the ship's hull, as if a massive, solid entity is brushing against it from below, yet without violently rocking the vessel. It collides with the ship simply to announce its presence without being seen. Simultaneously, the distant shore lights, or even the lights of other ships, begin to flicker erratically and then vanish entirely. It is an announcement of an electrical emergency imposed on the entire area, with one goal: isolating you from every form of light and support. If a crew member succumbs to the call and investigates, the remaining crew often hears a terrifying sound receding into the water. This sound is not a scream, but closer to the boiling of water and a massive, rapid intake of air, leaving behind a chilling void not just of sound but of spirit. In many accounts, the next crew to inspect finds the cabin door ajar and the upper frame covered in a sticky, salty residue of unknown origin, a simple physical proof of a non-physical encounter. Yet, this terror is not confined to our waters. It is a global phenomenon, indicating an incomprehensible, powerful sovereignty. Global horror, spiritual triangles of damnation, and the stripping of perception. The phenomenon of Djinn control over the seas takes on a global character when we connect it to the cursed triangles around the world, such as the infamous Bermuda Triangle. Spiritual interpreters, both ancient and modern, believe these areas are not mere time pockets or natural phenomena, but zones of satanic sovereignty, powerful convergence points, where the realms of the Djinn and demons intersect with our world under extreme high pressure. This is why the first things to fail in these zones are the compass direction and the radio communication. The Djinn, with their fiery material, can disrupt the Earth's magnetic field, causing the compass to spin wildly, cutting off all contact, achieving a single goal: destroying human perception before destroying the body. If you lose your ability to locate yourself and are cut off from the world, you become a desperate prey. Every ship that vanishes in these triangles does not sink in the literal sense. It is confiscated. It is dragged into places that our science cannot even imagine, another dimension existing on the surface of the water. Its crew becomes soldiers or servants in a kingdom that will never see the sun again. This brutal explanation provides the only sense behind the stories of ships found entirely abandoned, with food on the table and details suggesting an instantaneous evacuation. They did not flee, they were taken. But all this theoretical explanation and global mythology remains a distant whisper until you encounter a first-hand witness who can recount the pivotal moment of confrontation, when all barriers between truth and illusion collapsed. This is what happened to the sailor Khalid decades ago, on a desolate November night. The lone survivor's testimony, the eyes, and the promise of return. Khalid's final encounter: it was a moonless night. The stars were hidden behind a thin layer of black clouds. I heard the wailing for the first time at 2:30 in the morning. It was a faint groan, like the sound of broken glass inside a whale's belly. I ignored it. Our captain taught us, what you hear in the night is not for you. But the sound did not stop. It began to take form. It was no longer a groan, but a deep whisper from beneath the water, as if thousands of throats were speaking at once, yet they were all talking about me. About my name, my mistakes, and secrets no one else knew. At 2:45, the ship was struck. Not a wave hit, but a massive, solid blow as if from a heavy, powerful fist. All the lights immediately went out. And in the dark, I saw it. It wasn't a giant entity. It was eyes. Dozens of eyes scattered on the water's surface around us, moving in a pattern the human mind could not comprehend. Each eye glowed with a fading pale yellow color, like scattered pieces of burning ash. The eyes stared at us without blinking, a gaze searching for the soul. We were for men, but we became for statues wrapped in the silence of terror. Then came the smell. It was not the scent of dead fish. It was the smell of rotten sulfur mixed with a strange, sweet, indefinable perfume. An overwhelming odor that told you that what you saw before you was fire attempting to disguise itself as false beauty to deceive the soul. The captain suddenly screamed one phrase, but it was enough. Read anything. We didn't have time. We began to scream whatever verses and prayers we could, not in a calm tone, but with the voice of the last cry before death. The moment we raised our voices in reading, the eyes retreated with a frightening calm. They did not vanish, they submerged quietly, leaving behind a slightly disturbed water surface, as if it had all been a monstrous dream lived with our entire being. In the morning, we found no trace of the strike on the ship's hull. But we found one piece of evidence confirming the truth of the story. The compass was partially melted from the inside, as if it had been exposed to an infernal heat from an unknown source. This physical consequence confirms the terrifying truth. The sea is not a friend, but the boundary of a merciless kingdom. Since that night, none of us dared to look at the ocean after midnight, fearing we might see the reflection of those eyes that promised they would return the following night. The final warning, the sovereignty of silence and survival. The sea is not just water. It is an eternal barrier between our physical world and their fiery realm. The further you venture into it at night, the closer you get to that kingdom that knows no mercy. The danger is not the coming storm, nor the abyssal depths that no vessel has reached. The danger lies in your curiosity and your isolation, which make you easy prey. The rules of survival are simple, yet fatal to disobey. Never answer a call that comes from the water after midnight. Shut your ears to anything that sounds sweet or distressed. Never leave the protection of the vessel when you see a sudden electrical failure. The failure is the signal. Never believe you are alone. Never. If you find yourself in the open sea as the darkness stretches, do not look down, and do not answer any call. Because the only thing the Djinn of the sea demand from man is that he willingly surrender himself to the reality that this planet is not ours alone. It belongs to the demons at night. Do you believe this terror is real? If you were Khalid, would you have survived? Let us know in the comments below. I choose the light if you would stand your ground, or I choose the silence if you would surrender to the call of the deep.